Hello and most welcome to Heidegger 1723 of the series. And we are currently with Timothy Beal's book of Revelation, a biography. And we will continue where we left off at page 89, I think it was. So let's see where it could have been then. '98, yeah, it looks, yes, there we are. Very good. It will be in the PDF 117, and in the live text it's another number. It is, let's see here, it's 98. Yeah, 98, correct. So 98 versus 117. And we previously talked about the Ezekiel chapter and how there it is described four wheels into one and reaches with eyes all around them. And we compare that to the Klein bottle, if I don't misremember, and how there also were four interconnected creatures. With four different animal faces hovering in the heavens. I think we could make the text even a bit larger. Even larger by, yeah, perfect. And have the text to the top as high as possible. Ezekiel describes four interconnected creatures with four different animal faces hovering in the heavens. Each heavenly creature moves in sync with a pair of earthly wheels, one inside the other. And each animal plus wheels set moves in a kind of synchronized dance in which the pairs of wheels on earth shadow the movement of their corresponding heavenly creatures. Joachim finds in this vision a diagram for understanding what he calls all of the forests of histories which overshadow the Old Testament. These forests of histories, he explains, include 5 histories, 1 general history, and 4 particular histories. For he writes, there is 1 wheel having 4 faces. There is 1 general history to which 4 special histories are joined. Just thus, it appears that Joachim reads the 4 wheels within the wheels as all being in some sense essentially the same wheel, which is connected to the 4 faces of the 4 creatures. The general history, which corresponds to the outer wheels in Ezekiel's vision, is that which proceeds from the beginning of the world straight through the book of Ezra. That is the large narrative arc of biblical history from creation in Genesis 1 to the return of the Judean people from Babylonian exile. And their rebuilding of the Jerusalem temple in Ezra and Nehemiah. The 4 faces then are 4 specific or little biblical histories namely the stories of Job, Esther, and the apocryphal stories of Tobit and Judith that take place outside that larger historical arc. That is the wheel, these faces, but that is not the only concordance with these four faces, nor with the wheel. For these elements also relate to the forest of the history of the New Testament. With respect to that testament, Joachim continues, the four particular faces are the four Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And what of Revelation? It is, in fact, the wheel inside the outer wheel of general history. It is in this light the book of Revelation is both a timeline and a microcosm of the broad, overarching history of creation. As such, in Joachim's imagination, biblical history, which encompasses everything, is both diachronic and synchronic. It is a linear story of God's plan for the world that proceeds through time. Diachronic, from creation to culmination. At the same time, it is also a kind of multi-layered map, like a geographic or information system. Which for those with eyes to see becomes a means of uncovering and deciphering the hidden spatial geography of history, in which past, present, and future interact with and mirror one another. Thus, the total will of God for creation, which is easily missed in its densely forested manifestation, both in everyday experience and in the details of the Old and New Testament. Is revealed in the Apocalypse of John. The microcosmic wheel within the cosmic wheel of general history. Revelation is its concordance, index, and interpretive key. Joachim then breaks down the entire text of Revelation itself into 8 historical eras of the Christian church. The opening and letters to the 7 churches, the 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, the 2 beasts, the 7 bowls of plagues, the destruction of Babylon, and the beasts. The new millennium of Christ's reign, including the binding and later defeat of the dragon, as well as the last judgment. and the new heaven, new earth, and new Jerusalem. Of these eras, the first 7, which he also conceives as the 7 days of the final week, correspond to the 7 eras of church history that begin with the New Testament. The 8th corresponds to the culmination of creation and the end of history in the eternal reign of God with the saints. Red Dragon. Revelation then not only encodes and with Joachim's solicitation reveals the shape of general cosmic history from creation to consummation. It also gives its own more specific history of the church and where we, that is Joachim and his followers, stand within it, namely in the last days. But the correspondences do not end here. Joachim finds in particular images from Revelation still more specific microcosmic sets of historical 7s within these major eras of the church. Which are themselves set within the larger wheel of the history of creation. There's some problem here with the screen. Oh, no, I'm sorry here. Something is happening with the screen. Second here. Very sorry about that. Let's see here if we can. I think I'm gonna have to restart, I'm afraid. We log in a couple of minutes here. Nu har det lugnat ner sig här. Nu ska vi se här. Vi kan avvakta lite grann här. Ska vi se hur det.
You could pause the recording.
Okej, bra idé. Ögonblick. I will now resume the recording. Welcome back. Sorry for the miss-up. And we will continue on where we left off before the hiccup with the screen, which I'm terribly sorry for. Could be connected to heat. The seven seals opened by seven angels in what Joachim identifies as the second part of Revelation also represent the seven eras of the church as well as the seven eras of the Old Testament history. Among all these sevens within sevens, the seven heads of the red dragon in Revelation 12 take on particular significance and influence. This particular interpretation owes its popularity not only to Joachim's extensive written commentary on the text, but also the highly compelling color illustration that is the interacting word and image that he created in his book of figures to explicate and expand upon his words. The medium of the large folio manuscript codex was especially amenable to Joachim's work, especially his book of figures, in a way that later print book media would not have been. Printing press technology requires a fixed layout of set and locked metal type that is of uniform size, line length, margins, and so on, with images set apart from text on part or all of a page. By contrast, in the calligraphic mode of manuscript book art, images as well as words, lines, and larger bodies of hand-written text in various sizes and colors can bend around images, cut across and between them, and interact with them and other text in ways that resist linear reading strategies while producing complex spatial relationships between different elements Joachim's figure of the red dragon is an excellent illustration of the effects that are possible in such a medium. The dragon itself runs across a full folio of parchment. Its 7 heads reach on long, scaly necks across the upper left-hand side of the sheet, while its thick torso curls down across the bottom of the sheet before turning up into the curly tail found in the upper right hand corner. All around the dragon's body are handwritten lines of text, mostly in black ink, but sometimes in red. Words and phrases lace the dragon's heads, while larger blocks of commentary fill the spaces around the body. The various pieces of text are laid out in different directions on the page, so that one needs to keep turning it clockwise and counterclockwise to read it. These different bodies of text, moreover, are not presented in any particular sequence that would require one to read from one section to the next. Rather, it is up to the reader, or rather the user, to decide where to start and how to proceed. It is a truly interactive work of manuscript media. The red dragon of Revelation 12 which is Joachim's inspiration for this figure, possesses its own complex genealogy. As I have argued elsewhere, it inherits features from a range of Hebrew biblical chaos monsters, especially the sea monster and Leviathan, which is a case monster that is sometimes identified with and glorified by God, and at other times set against God as creation's worst enemy. In Joachim's work, that genealogy is not so much sorted out as further complexified, for the red dragon is not simply a figure of Satan, rather it is an embodiment of the whole history of the church trials and tribulations, past, present, and future. The seven heads of the dragon, Joachim explains in script that curves gracefully around the painting of the red dragon itself, signify seven tyrants by whom the persecutions of the church were begun. Above each of the heads is the name of the persecutor. Along each neck are details about the population responsible for the persecutions and how by their persecutions they purified and strengthened the church. Five heads are identified with persecutions that have already taken place. The persecution of the Jews led by King Herod during the time of the apostles. The persecution of the pagans led by the Roman Emperor Nero during the time of the martyrs. The persecution of the heretics led by the Arian Emperor Constantius II during the time of the doctors. The persecution of the Saracens or Arab Muslims led by Muhammad during the time of the virgins, and the persecution of the sons of Babylon led by Mesemoth during the time of the conventuals. These persecutions are all in the past. The sixth head, which wears a crown, represents a persecution that is both already underway and soon to come. The head itself, Joachim says, is Saladin. That is Salah ad-Din Yusuf ibn Ayyub, the first Sultan of Syria and Egypt, and the founding ruler of the Sunni Muslim Ayyubid dynasty. In 1169, Saladin had taken control of Egypt and began establishing an empire throughout the Middle East. By 1183, he had captured the major Syrian cities of Damascus and Aleppo, and in 1187 he defeated the Christian Crusaders and took control of Palestine, including Jerusalem. Noting that the dragon of Revelation has 7 heads and 10 horns, Joachim explains that the 10 horns are actually all of this 6th head. Because this king will gather under him the 10 other kings mentioned later in Revelation, who will receive authority as kings for one other together with the beast, in order to wage war against Christ before they, along with the beast, are ultimately conquered. At first, Joachim explains, Saladin will rule alone. Soon, however, either he will be raised from the dead, or his immediate successor will rise up. And gather these other kings under him, at which time the persecutions of the church will increase greatly, inciting universal war against God's elect. Many will be crowned with martyrdom in those days. Before the end of this universal persecution, by the 6th head and his 10 horns, the dragon's 7th head, which represent the Antichrist himself, will rise up. Recall that this false Messiah, often identified with the beast of Revelation, is expected to presage the second coming and last judgment, persecuting believers and deluding the masses into worshipping him. The dragon's last two heads will be joined in a twin tribulation of Christians around the world. In this sense, Joachim writes, the sixth and seventh persecutions of the church will take place together during the era of the sixth of the seven seals, rather than during the time of the seventh seal, which, as mentioned previously, will be the era of the millennial reign of Christ, when the dragon's heads will be crushed and he will be imprisoned in the abyss. An image that combines the description of Revelation of the dragon chained in the abyss and the description in Psalm 74 of God crushing the heads of the dragon. As such, the heads, kings, tribulations are 7 in number, but are destined to be fulfilled under the 1/6 time of the final week. And here, by the final week, we put a point. Do make a note. Possible. I will now make a intro. So let's see. Do we have the exact spot and the page number where we ended? 106 and final week. Perfect. We can now go to page 98-99 in the description of the GIS Now we have it. It's an we start at 98 there because it's the last on page 98, a bit up, yeah. As such, in Joachim's imagination, biblical history, which encompasses everything, is both diachronic and synchronic. It is a linear story of God's plan for the world that proceeds through time, from creation to culmination. But at the same time, it is also a kind of multi-layered map, like a geographical information system, GIS. For which, for those with eyes to see, becomes a means of uncovering and decipher the hidden spatial, and that is synchronic geography of history. And listen now, in which past, present, and future interact with and mirror one another. The synchronic and the diachronic. It will be developed in a linear fashion, Newtonian if you like, but it is actually an unfoldment of the bigger, greater understanding of the, if you like, GIS. And in the GIS, the future and the past is mirroring each other. They are not completely disjunct. Instead, they enforces each other. Back to the text. It's time to return to that interesting Wikipedia. And I would say that is God in its entirety. That what we most usually are not able to penetrate. That is hidden from view is the synchronic take. We are locked in the synchronic take, so to speak. We cannot get out. So we only see diachronic events, unable as we are to expand our vision, our seeing. To take in more. So that it's written here, thus the total will of God for creation, which is easily missed in its densely forested manifestation, both in everyday experience and in the details of the Old and New Testaments. is revealed in the Apocalypse of John. So listen now, the microcosmic wheel within the cosmic wheel of general history. So you see here the mentioning before in Ezekiel, and Ezekiel's wheel is participating here. This is actually the creator of the diachronic, of the linear time. Of that stepwise cause and effect, limited understanding is coming from this creator, which also equals the will of God. God in all its grandeur. Revelation is its concordance, index, and interpretive key. And if we go further down to the description of how the illustrations work in the book, say that would be a couple of pages. So yeah, the various, this is a bit down on the page, beginning with various, we are speaking the various. The various pieces of text are laid out in different directions on the page, so that one needs to keep turning it clockwise and counterclockwise to read it. So the book itself is played out in a diachronic fashion on the surface, but it is really synchronic. The past and future mirror each other. These different bodies of text, moreover, are not presented in any particular sequence that would require one to read from one section to the next. It is up to the reader, or more eloquently put here, the user, to decide where to start and how to proceed. It is truly interactive work of manuscript media. So it's all in one go, but it can also be folded out in a linear diachronic fashion. So it could make sense to us humble everyday people who are stranded in that diachronic time. This is, of course, very similar to Julian Barber's time vision, or rather that all time exists as oppositions to each other, with often he depicts that with triangles with differences. It's the same here. once we understand that, we will also see the will of God that is built up in a more wholesome way than diachronic time can give. In Ludwig Wittgenstein, this is often seen as aspect vision or aspect seeing. I thought it was so fitting because it is called the mind's eye. So it goes well with the title. Aspect seeing is taking in mirror functions at the same time to give the larger, more encompassing and also more informative vision of synchronic time or spatial time. Very, very. I do understand now why Jordan Peterson is so interested in Joachim. Kalle, some comments maybe?
Let us check out the English Wikipedia page of Joachim Fiore, because it contains a color picture of the dragon. You see here. It's magnificent, isn't it? And
Beautiful.
we could even, yes. I don't know if we should try to rotate it. No, let's not try to rotate it. But there are 7, as we mentioned, and the 6th head is Saladin, as we mentioned, and he's the only one who seems to have a crown, Saladin, and he will reign together with, at the same time as the Antichrist. So they will be synchronous, working together, according to Joachim Floris.
Yes, it's the cooperative part. And I also very like the diachronic versus synchronic drawing on the left side.
And I asked myself, is this the world that Joachim represents? Is it deterministic world? No, not really. We could, to quote the description of Timothy Beal on the same page, as you read, it's up to the reader, or rather the user, to decide where to start and how to proceed. So this breaks a little bit the deterministic worldview, because it makes the reader or the believer to make his or her own position, whether to be faithful or not.
Well, it's the observer coming in. That's grand. That's what makes it synchronic. And I would say the diachronic is deterministic, while the greater understanding, the bigger knowledge, lies in the synchronic.
Why so? Because synchronic is where you, as observer, you create your reality. Is it in that way you mean?
Well, you have all the factors, like past and future are mirroring each other and interacting. So yes, the observer is active in that way. And you can compare it to the serpent here, or the monster. It has both tail and heads. The two sides. Remember the DCCT, it has also head and tail. One side of the coin is, as we know, called head, and the other one is actually called tail.
Yes, indeed.
It's a perfect fit. Can even wonder if it is a pure coincidence.
Indeed, indeed. Excellent observation.
So I think, are any more questions, Kalle?
No, I could point out that in the past you have commented that to call God all-knowing is heretical. So in the world that Joachim creates, God is unknowing in one way or another. But I don't know. It's a difficult question. So if you say God is unknowing, that creates a deterministic world, which is heretical. Would you say like that?
Well, in the deterministic take, we cannot feel, sense, or understand God. We just need to trust. But once we get in the synchronic, God will shine through in his presence. And God will not be unknowing, I would say, no. But it will be an unknowingness present in the diachronic time. Because the observer is not in on it.
Yes, indeed. But okay, but we know that the past is not fixed. So is diachronic time fixed? Would you say no?
In the diachronical, it's fixed, but that fixation, once we understand the synchronic approach or the synchronic bigger picture, we will see that it is not deterministic. But the two levels are so different. So when you are in the diachronic, you will not know that. That will be the unknowingness. Would you
But Wheeler showed in the 1970s that the past is not fixed.
No, indeed, it's mirroring each other. I think we need to end there.
Let's end there. I thank you so much.
See here if I can find the proper. See here. Oh.
Thank you. You should stop the recording if you.
I have a problem here again.
Overheating of the computer, perhaps.
Hang on a second.
Yes.
See what happens here. Sorry everyone for this. I can actually feel my laptop heating up here. It's boiling.